Yeah, now you can start.
Okay. So we are going to start with MER 03. This entire subject, which is on business idea and innovation, is divided in four blocks with a total of 16 units. I will be I'll be giving you the basic idea of the entire unit at first. So this whole course of MER 03 discusses what kind of business ideas, or what are the various sources from which business ideas could be generated, how to scan those ideas and screen those ideas before commercializing those ideas, what steps are to be undertaken by the entrepreneurs. For instance, they have to be tested for feasibility, they have to be tested for viability, whether it will be profitable or not, whether it is feasible or not. So with all those tests, and also market tests, also whether it is in accordance with the tastes and habits and choices of the customers, what is the future prospect of such ideas. So after all those analysis, only entrepreneurs are suggested to be moving ahead with the ideas that they've finalized for commercializing into a product or a service. So all the following 16 units will be discussing about product scanning, environment scanning, idea scanning, screening, the analysis and tests to be done, the optimizations to be checked for, and then finally the commercialization or the launch of the product or service. As such, whatever has been chosen by the entrepreneur. So, to start with Unit 1, which discusses business idea. In this unit, we will be covering up what are the various sources of business idea from which it can be generated, and its usefulness in making a business plan. Those ideas have to be converted into a plan, translated into a plan, to see its profitability structure. Then determine the scanning and screening process of business ideas, so that you could finally, from a pool of ideas, you could finally shortlist the ones which are feasible and viable, the ones which uh, have better prospects for the market. And then what are the ways in which workability of the selected business idea could be initiated. So to proceed with, business ideas lead to creation of wealth. Organizational growth depends upon what kind of idea are you coming up with, which goods and services will you initiate production of, and the competitiveness or the competitive edge or the competitive advantageous position that your business will acquire in the market, and finally making the company more innovative. All of this depends upon the business, or depends upon business idea. When we talk about business idea, I want to make it clear that we are not just talking about new businesses or new startups uh, choosing what product or service they want to deal in, but we are also talking about the existing uh, entrepreneurs. We are also talking about the existing enterprises. We are also talking about the big players. We are also talking about conglomerates in the market, because everyone everyone has to come up with new products or services every now and then. There is, for instance, you see some 4 5 years back, HUL had launched Tresme. Not that it did not had already several lines of shampoos, but yet they had to come with another innovation, with another product to survive, to gain a decent market share. So, every now and then They have to come up with certain ideas, they have to keep them updated, they have to ensure that they there is some or other innovation going on in the market, so as to save themselves from stability, getting stable in a dynamic environment. That's the biggest nightmare of business entrepreneurs, to get stable in a dynamic environment. As and when the environment changes, they too have to come up with new products or services. That's the only reason, every year there's a model of Samsung being launched, some S series. Every year there is some model of iPhone or OnePlus being launched. Reason being, to innovate themselves. They have to look out for better products, they have to look out for better services to be provided, that will help them in creation of wealth, that will help the organization grow, that will make the business, or that will help the business achieve a competitive advantage in the market. So what are the various sources from which business ideas could be generated? The business ideas could be generated from personal experience and observation. If you are facing a difficulty in something, that could be the source for generating a new business idea, a business solution to take care of that difficulty, to solve that difficulty, to solve that problem. So, ideas can be generated from personal experiences or observation. It can be generated from personal intention. When we say personal intention, as in your intention to keep up with the pace of the market, your intention to come up with something new. Professional advisors and consultants. There are advisors and consultants out there in the market for taking their advices, for availing their advices and consultancies. You have to pay a fee, and then they give you their advices, they give you what new innovative thing can you come up with. Sales force and business executives who are directly venturing out in the market, who are out present there in the market, who deal with customers, who are associated with customers, they can come up with certain ideas. While demonstrating a product to the customers, they might come across a difficulty, they might come across a problem that exists in that pertains in the existing product. So it is from there that they could come up with some idea. Distribution channels means the wholesalers, the retailers, the agents through which your product passes to the customer, to the final customer. They can be at times very uh, helpful of their ideas can sometimes prove to be very helpful. Then consumers feedback, because whatever idea for the business you come up with is finally aimed at facilitating the customer. So how about getting to know from the actual customer who's going to use your product or service? How about getting to know from them as to what product or what services are they in need of? What problems are they facing right now that could be taken care of with the help of some product or service? Through newspaper, magazines, books, and internet, there's variety of information available. There's variety of lot of data available, and through that also it is possible to get some ideas about what's happening, about certain AI tools, or about certain new business that is gaining momentum in the market. So from there also you can at times find certain good business ideas. Exhibitions and trade fair. These exhibitions and trade fair are not just sponsored by uh, these business promotion associations, but also by the government, because since day one of these sessions, from where we started at MER one. I have been telling you that it is in pretty much interest of the government to get indulged into what's happening in the business environment, because businesses contribute a lot in the making of the country, with the import and export, with their contribution to foreign exchange reserves, with their contribution in the GDP of the country, with the fact that they provide a lot of employment. So governments have a lot of interest in what's happening in the business, among the business enterprises, how much innovation is there, whether any of them are failing or something, how could the government support them. So to promote businesses, to promote entrepreneurship, government also funds or assists the organization of these exhibitions and trade fairs. So several trade fairs. Sometimes there is automobile trade fair. Sometimes there is some innovation exhibition, or there could be anything else, electronic devices, or any research oriented exhibitions. So the lot of exhibitions that take place around the whole of India or around whole of world every now and then, very frequently. So it is with these exhibitions and trade fair that a lot of business comes in role play. A lot of business ideas come in role play. Research and development in existing products is a very popular source of business idea. I just discussed with you, I just told you that every year a new model of some Samsung S series gets launched. Every year there is a new series of iPhone getting launched. So what are those are through the research and development that takes place in the existing products. Brainstorming sessions, brainstorming sessions as in um, you know sessions wherein a group of people are supposed to be discussing or putting their thoughts and opinions out in the public, wherein you know they gather at a place, they gather at a common place, they discuss, wherein they might mutually share their experience about some enterprise or about some product, and uh, any existing enterprise or any existing product that they've used or that they are running currently, they are maintaining currently. They can share their ideologies about businesses and its progress. They can uh, they can have deliberations over it. So this is what happens in brainstorming sessions. Okay, so who are these people who come or who gather at a place for brainstorming sessions? They may be people from different fields. Somebody from human resources department, somebody is from marketing, somebody is an expert of production and quality control, somebody is an expert of finance, somebody could be an expert of taxation. So this group is comprised of members from several different areas, different streams. Okay, so, what happens during the process of brainstorming sessions? A lot of information is floated among the group members while they are discussing on broader subjects of their own interest areas. All these ideas are actually recorded by somebody, and then a checklist is prepared. And then an analysis is done on all these ideas, whether some of them are relevant, some of them may be irrelevant, which is the best idea that could be suitable to the present environmental conditions if chosen and applied. So this is what happens during a brainstorming session. Brainstorming session is few people sitting there speaking out their thoughts and opinions, their experiences related to products, related to businesses, etc., etc. And then there is one person who's observing all of this. There's one person who's making a note of all the discussion. prepares a checklist of everything that has been discussed. And then finally, from that prepared documents, from that checklist, relevant and irrelevant ideas are sorted, and the best one, whichever is suitable to the present environmental condition, is chosen. Then from the recent trends in market, like the recent trends in market is about AI. So a lot of organizations or enterprises are already venturing into it. 7 8 years down the line, it was about fintechs. So there are plethora of fintech organizations or enterprises out there in the market. So these are the various sources to which business ideas could be gathered. The next is environmental scanning of the business idea. So environmental scanning, as in before floating a business idea, the entrepreneurs basically monitors the environment systematically, so as to understand if the environment is suitable for the creative idea or not, so as to figure out whether the environment is suitable for the creative idea, so that it could be further translated into some product or service. So this in a way gives a realistic picture to the entrepreneurs with regard to the said business idea, whether it should be taken forward or not. So scanning of the environment helps them in checking if the product or service that would be the result of a business idea will be acceptable or not. What would be the opportunities and the threats underlying those products or services or those business ideas. So that is why environmental scanning of a business idea is important. Through environmental scanning, you figure out the opportunities and threats underlying. There are certain key factors in environmental scanning. All these key factors we had already discussed in MER 01, which was about business environment. So we had discussed economic, which basically deals about the present state of economy, whether there is recession in the country or whether there is inflation in the country, what is the GDP growth rate, what is the rate of capital formation, what is the export promotion and import substitution position, what is the balance of payment situation, what will be the impact of world trade to the domestic market. All of this is a other factors to be considered under economic situations. Under sociological, whether the businessmen are risk takers or they are risk averse. Risk averse are the ones who wish to avoid risk, the ones who do not wish to take risk. So those are called as risk averse. So whether the businessmen are risk takers or they are risk averters, whether the businessmen are resistant to change or they are ready for changes, they accept changes gladly, whether the people in the surroundings are scientific method believer or ritual believer, as in how customary are they. Educational factors, the literacy level, the attitude towards learning and knowledge, the type of educational format, quality of higher education, professional education, all of these are considered before launching a business idea. Demographical factors, as in the age wise distribution in population, the density of population, the income level, the gender composition, the occupational opportunities, etc., etc. Technological factors, whether there is upgradation of technology or whether training and development programs are related, so are required, so as to help the so as to help the people get adapted to the newer technologies whether continuous research and development is being undertaken or not. Then under governmental factors, what are the industrial policies of the government, what are the government programs and projects, what are the taxation policies, the government support systems like subsidies, incentives, what are the import and export tariffs, duties, etc., etc. Under competition factors, what is looked after is whether certain firms are dominating in the said industry or not, what are the types and variety of products or services that are available, are there any price competition or are there any entry barriers in the market, etc., etc. Suppliers and distributors, what is the nature of supplier and distributor, what is the cost of raw materials, what are the channels of suppliers, the credit policies, freight cost, carriage cost, etc., etc. So these are the factors of environmental scanning that plays an important role in figuring out whether the business idea is going to be a feasible one or not, what opportunities and threads are underlying the business ideas. Next, screening of the business idea. See, in the last to last slide, we had done sources of business idea. So, a company is never sure as to from where can they get a perfect business idea which could work for them. So, what do they do in the process? In the process of finding a perfect business idea, they collect business ideas from all these sources, from all the sources as much as possible ideas are collected. Now, this results in organizations having a pool of ideas, having a pool of ideas. Now, out of this pool of ideas, potential business ideas which could be converted into actual product or services needs to be screened, needs to be figured out, needs to be shortlisted. So for this purpose, what is done? For this purpose, all those business ideas that have been received from various sources are screened on the factors of which are the ones that are suitable to the entrepreneurs. Certain ideas must have been or could have been received from the sources which are not suitable to the entrepreneur itself. For instance, it would require some specialization, some special abilities. It is not accessible to them. It might not offer some prospects for rapid growth or high return. So, under such circumstances, those uh, ideas are screened out, are chucked out so as to find the so as to come out with a final pool of ideas that could be considered by the entrepreneurs. So next factor on which screening of business ideas is done is that of national interest. Sometimes there could be a business opportunity which is pretty much suitable to me but is not in the national interest, is not in the priorities which are reflected by the uh, government. This may be profitable to me, but this is in contraction to government regulations. Under such circumstances also, those ideas are removed from the pool, where certain foreign currency would be required, wherein certain special license would be required. Okay, for instance, if I have to give you an example, um, the Tata Gypsy or the Tata Jeep was ordered by Pakistan military. Okay, few years back, not right now. I think a decade back or something like that. But Ratan Tata refused to take that order because it was not in the interest of our nation. Okay. Sorry. So the same was not in the interest of the nation. Pakistan, since we do not share very congenial terms with Pakistan, therefore Ratan Tata refused to take that order and did not supply that. Whereas Maruti, on the other hand, supplied its gypsy to Pakistan Army. So, um at one hand, Ratan Tata did not take the order, and on the other hand, another company of the same country took the order and delivered the same. So, what is it? What is it? This is how national interest, when is given importance by any of the enterprise, results in shortlisting of business ideas at that from that point of view. Assessment of capital requirement. So, if there are certain ideas which require a lot of capital and the business or the enterprise is not able to arrange so much of funds, then they will remove those ideas from its list. Assessment of raw materials required. If it requires raw materials which are not readily available in India or are not, easy to be arranged, or it requires heavy investment in terms of projects. It would also require heavy investment in terms of um amount invested in working capital, because you do not own the raw material, so you'll always have to keep it in stock. So it will result in holding up a lot of amount in stock in maintaining stock. So under such circumstances also, few of the business ideas could be preened out. Competency of the market. um, if the market is not competitive for certain for certain products or certain business ideas um, that have been that have been suggested by various sources, those could be shortlisted as well, because on the grounds that it is not going to provide any competitive advantage to the business. For instance, the market size is very small. For instance, the level of competition is, let's say, very high, or there are any entry point barriers created. For example, if I have to tell you, um, I think from the year 2007 or 8, these use and throw pens were launched. So before that, there were very branded pens available there. Cello Gripper, there was Technotip, there was Reynolds Jetter, there was uh, a lot of other decent brands. Link was there, Flair was there. But once this use and throw pens came, whose average price was so low that it created a barrier for other uh, competitors, for other enterprises to enter the market. Because with such price point, which is very low, there is hardly any scope of expanding. There is hardly any scope of making profits. There is hardly any scope of acquiring any market share. What happened as a result? 5 years, 7 years down the lane, every other branded, every other branded pens also, for instance, Cello and Link, had to enter into the same market of providing low cost use and throw pens, right? So, if there is such entry point barriers, if the price competition is so high, it is it is unattractive. It is unattractive for enterprises to enter into such a field. Rationality of the cost structure. Generally, it is expected that the cost structure of business ideas should be very balanced, so that there is scope of earning adequate amount of profit. So to figure out whether adequate amount of profit can be earned or not from a certain business idea, uh, few things are considered. For instance, what is going to be the cost of raw material, what is going to be the labor cost, what is going to be the overhead expenses, what will be the fixed costs, what would be the operating costs. After doing an analysis of all such costs, finally the decision of whether it is going to provide enough window to earn profit or not is figured out, and on the basis of that, the idea may be screened out or it may be shortlisted as and how the situation arises. Risk and uncertainty assessment. If a business, see, in general, if we talk, every business faces risks and uncertainty. There's no business which comes with fixed return and zero risk. Every business has to face risk and uncertainty. So every entrepreneur is generally prepared to face it. But in case the risk or uncertainty uh, in a particular idea is way beyond the trigger point of the entrepreneur, okay, for instance, there is too much fluctuation in the business cycle, if there is frequent technological upgradation required in a business, if um, there is competition from importers in a business, and even with such importers wherein it is not possible to compete with them on a price point situation. For example, if we wish to compare with the Chinese light manufacturers or electronic chip manufacturers, it is next to impossible because they will not be able to produce the same thing at such low cost with such precise uh, techniques that they put in. So, under such circumstances, or if there is too much of uncertainty or risk associated in the change, um, for changes in the taste and preferences of the customer, under such circumstances, it becomes very unattractive to proceed with a certain business idea. So, on the basis of these considerations, business ideas are screened out. Why is it important to screen business ideas? Because otherwise, you will keep on hovering around so many business ideas without coming across any concrete one that you could proceed with. So it is helpful in determining the goal. It helps in shortlisting. It helps in giving you the handful of ones that would be useful for you, that would actually be helpful and feasible and viable for you. It helps in defining the competency of enterprise. While you are screening, on the basis of the considerations that we just discussed in the previous slide, it becomes it becomes easier for us to figure out what are the strengths and weaknesses associated with every business idea. And on the basis of assessing the strength and weaknesses, the entrepreneur is forced to identify and assess the strong and weak points of its proposed business idea. So it somewhere down the line helps you in figuring out your competency. It helps in better utilization of available resources. We know that resources are scarce, they are limited, and there should be optimum utilization of these resources wherever possible. So, under such circumstances, majority of the entrepreneurs need to restrict the amount of time, money, people, um and other resources they are going to put into use. So, screening helps in wiping off or rejecting the non-realistic ideas which are going to consume a lot of resources. How is it going to help? Here under the considerations we had done points like, assessment of capital requirement, assessment of raw material requirement. So you can assess whether you will be able to put in so much or not, and therefore you may reject or accept a business idea. It helps in identifying issues, challenges, and opportunities of all the business ideas. What is the market potential? What is the customer potential? What is the opportunity that underlies for an entrepreneur in a certain business project? All of this becomes very clear with while you're screening for business ideas. It is helpful in proper assessment of risk. So, while screening, you determine the risk that is associated with each business ideas, and therefore, better assessment of risks makes better probability of success while you're implementing your business idea. So that is how you can minimize the risk and maximize the profits. So, how can you select a workable business idea? So there are certain points or guidelines to be kept in mind by the entrepreneurs while selecting a workable business idea. Workable business idea means something that is feasible, something that is viable, something that is realistic, something that is affordable. Okay. So certain guidelines are to be kept in mind by the entrepreneurs. For instance, business idea must be in accordance to the business need. You should actually, your idea should be in accordance, in line with the business need, something that you already need, something that ensures that your effort will not become worth less, something that can satisfy the need of the business, something that is not only feasible but also viable. The business idea must be realistic. So while you're collecting sources of business idea, it is quite possible that you will find out a lot of um, you will get a lot of such ideas which do not even sound realistic for you. So it is important that you consider only such business ideas which are workable for you, which are realistic for you, which are based on realism, uh, which can be implemented in actual. So businesses, these business ideas should be rather written in a in an impressive manner. They should be formatted wonderfully, and then they should also be the ones which have already been researched upon. Okay, so business ideas must be realistic. Business idea is precise on its task. The deadline and completion date becomes an important factor while you are, finding out a business idea. So whether your idea will succeed or not depends to a great extent on the deadline and the completion dates. So for this is in particular importance. This is in particular important for the seasonal products, for those which are going to be sold or which are going to find a place in the market only during their peak season and will vanish once the season is over. So the timing, the deadline, the precision matters a lot. A strong support team needed for a good business idea is always needed for a good business idea, because the entrepreneur cannot do everything on his or her own. The success of a business depends to a great extent on how well the ideas have been executed. And who's going to execute an idea? You might have an excellent business idea, but you might yet fail because the execution was not good. And who's going to do the execution? Who's going to implement that business idea into the organization? A team. It's not a one man's job. A team is going to do it. Proper communication among the implementation team should be done. Communication and coordination becomes a very integral part of a workable team, of a workable organization. So there should be proper coordination, there should be good communication among the team members. must concern the competition competency of the rivals. So, this is an important thing that an entrepreneur, while estimating the workability of a business idea, must know about his or her competitors. They must know who are the prospective rivals. What are the kind of threats or the challenges that they are going to bring along your way? What would be the market share of those firms, and who and how is one going to have an upper hand over it? So, it is important that to make your business idea workable, you must always consider the competition that surrounds your business. Expert advice should be taken from industrial and marketing professional, because they are the ones who will be able to give you the inside view of the industry and its growth. They will help you in reducing your business risk, or in reduction of your expenses. So, while the new business ideas can only predict the current scenario demand expectation, certain other valuable factors of the future might get ignored, which can be taken into consideration on due time if the industrial and marketing professionals or experts are considered on time. So there should be regular review and follow up, because no business idea can succeed if it is stagnant, if it is rigid. Changes might have to be made into those in accordance with the dynamic environment. As and when the environment is changing, as and when the idea should be changed, as and when the product should be changed, as and when the services should be changed. So, to make a business idea workable, it is important that regular review and follow up is done. So, this is all about Unit 1. In case anybody has any queries, any doubts related to it, kindly let me know, else I will proceed with Unit 2. Okay, so I will proceed with Unit 2, which is business idea generation. So, how a business idea is generated. It can be through self help groups, it can be through uh, other meetings, it can be through some cooperative, with the help of some cooperative societies. So, how exactly is a business idea generated? So, uh, at first, what are the objectives? This is analytical. I'm going to skip it. So let me introduce the unit to you first. Here, in this unit, we are going to study business idea generation, wherein certain points that is going to help you or assist you in understanding the concept better is that certain ideas and opportunities come from the environment. It doesn't come on their own, it comes from the environment. What is happening in the business environment? What changes are taking place? What changes are taking place? What opportunities or the threats are being offered by environment? And then there are certain trainers to be involved, to be kept, so as to find out whether or not the entrepreneur has a product or service in mind. There is constant change happening in the environment, and so your product too should be changing. So, business idea generation, we are going to actually study here brainstorming sessions, something that we had discussed in unit 1, brainstorming sessions. So brainstorming sessions or brainstorming discussions can be done at three levels. The first level is when there are changing needs of peoples due to constant change in culture and environment. These changes can be in any of the areas of a person's life, for instance in clothing, in technology, in food, communication, lifestyle habits, fashion, etc., etc. So new products or services for these requirements offers new opportunities for the business. Then there is new usage of existing products or services. So you have to discuss where in value addition proposition can these be placed, where in value addition proposition can these new products be placed. Okay, for instance there are new usages of wool, wherein people are not just using it for knitting purposes to make sweaters or woolen clothes, but also using it for arts and crafts. Okay, so with that these kind of new uses, where in the value addition proposition could it be placed? To identify products from the problems that people face in certain areas. These areas could be, agricultural, uh, in the processing department, wherein there is activities like drying, powdering, packaging. Um, then in the product sector, as in we are talking about manufacturing something, manufacturing clothes, manufacturing any toys, manufacturing any accessories, any household items, it could be anything. Manufacturing products is basically manufacturing. Trade, what is trade? Trade is wherein you're not manufacturing anything, but you're just trading on certain goods which have been manufactured by somebody, as in you're acting as a facilitator, you're buying the goods from the manufacturers and selling it to the end consumers. And then services sectors, as in wherein any professional or commercial service which requires the special expertise of uh, the provider, for instance, saloons, for instance, legal services, for instance, accounting services, for instance, consultancy, etc. Legal consultancy, accounting consultancy, income tax consultancy, medical consultancy, it can be any of any form. So, brainstorming sessions to be done on these three levels, wherein you discuss the changing needs of people and what is the impact of culture and environment on that. What is the new usage of any existing product or services, and where to position them in value added proposition, and to identify products from the problems people face in the following areas: in agriculture, in processing, in product sector, in trade sector, in services sector. What are the basic rules for brainstorming? There should be no judgment, there should be no critics, there should be no critical judgment in brainstorming. All ideas and suggestions should therefore be welcomed, because you're not going to judge anything. So let the ideas come, let the suggestions come. Quantity of the ideas that you've received is important and not the quality, because for quality you do further screening. Right now what is important, that you get as many ideas as possible. Combination and improvement of ideas is sought in a brainstorming session. There are four starting points for a brainstorming session, which is the skills. What skills? Here basically you are helping the women to list the skills which they possess. Women have been made the center of brainstorming sessions here, and they are the ones who are being given importance or privilege, or the stage, they are offered the stage, so that they could come out from their shells, so that they could, list the skills that they possess. It may relate to weaving, it may relate to cooking, it may relate to farming, baking, etc., etc. So basically it is about discussing what the women should be starting, discussing what the women's could be contributing, discussing how they could play a role in the um, how they could play a role in entrepreneurship. What are the available resources? The next step is to brainstorm on different uses of resources and the different products based on the resources. Okay. The next step is to find out the products or services that are not available in the community, so that you could arrange the same, so that the same could be arranged with the help of self-help groups, or with the help of government or associations, etc., business associations, organizational associations. For instance, there is FICCI. So with the help of certain associations like this, the deficit products or services could be arranged. Institutional demand, as in what is the current demand, which institutions are demanding what, like um certain institutions like hospitals or hotels, or maybe some small factories could be demanding certain thing. So it is always advantageous to have an agreement to, uh, it is always advantageous to maintain regular quality and quantity, or regularity in quality and in making available quality and quantity. So um in brainstorming session, there is supposed to be a trainer, the one who notes down the point and prepares the checklist. So that trainer is supposed to be helping or assisting the women to prepare a checklist for discussing among various institutions. Now, what could be the business idea for further research? What could be business ideas for further research? There could be innumerable ideas that could be generated with the help of, those 4 points that we just discussed above. So all those total ideas or list of ideas are normally screened through a rapid feasibility assessment test, and on the basis of that, there can be origin of an idea. um, there can be origin of an idea, and that may come that idea might have or might be generated from women themselves, or through the trainer or through the assistance of the trainer. Skills, what skills are possessed by the women, where are they likely to have a better prospect, what skills could be acquired by them in the long run of time, long term, which might involve their willingness and motivation. What could be the sources of inputs for the products that are being produced or are available locally or at markets close by, so that women do not have to travel long distances to acquire these inputs. So planning and organizing purchase of raw material could become a easier task for them. Location of market, so that there is so that women find it easier to sell, to directly sell, without having to spend time or money to travel to long distances. So location of markets should be such which are um, accessible to them. So next is the ownership and decision making in self-help groups. To first understand what exactly is a self-help group. Self-help group is a group consisting of certain members who wish to who wish to help each other. By helping each other, they are going to help themselves. So that is the thought, or that is the philosophy behind existence of self-help groups. A group of people with common interest, a group of members with common interest become a part of or form a self-help group wherein they help each other with the, and also in that process they help themselves. So what happens in a self-help group? All members participate in decision making. All members undertake activities that the group has decided to do, and all members share equally in the benefits of the group activities. There's no discrimination. There's no upper hand of anybody. There is no dominance of a particular person or a particular group. So, in the self help group, everyone participates in decision making, everyone has shares the benefit equally, and everyone adheres to the activities that has been undertaken or decided to be undertaken by the group. What are the various roles and responsibilities in self-help groups? Rights and duties of the members are listed. Roles, specific roles are allocated to every member to perform. And then the leaders of self-help groups are never fixed for a long period of time. They are elected and rotated as per term. What are the systems required for effective functioning of self-help groups? Frequent meetings are required. Convenience of meeting time and location should be made special note of. It shouldn't be inconvenient for people. Self-help groups are generally for women. So the time and the location of meeting should be given due consideration. It shouldn't be uh, located at some place which is inaccessible for them to reach. It shouldn't be conducted at such a time which is not feasible for them to be present at. There should be awareness regarding location and time, and then participation should be ensured by all the members. Leadership among self-help groups are rotated so that there is empowerment of all the members. Nobody feels that the group is being dominated by a few and they do not have any say. Work and responsibility should be shared by all so that nobody is over or under worked. Organization of a cooperative society or the possibilities of organization. So one of the ways in which women can work is through self-help groups, and the other way is through organization of a cooperative society. So while organizing in the form of a cooperative society, the basic idea or concept remains the same, which is what? That every member is supposed to be cooperating each other. Every member is supposed to be cooperating each other in the in achieving the objective of the cooperative society. So while while a group of members or while a group of women decide to register themselves to form an organization of a cooperative society for themselves, they need to register themselves. They need to comply to the Cooperative Societies Act, the norms of the Cooperative Societies Act, and they have to legally register themselves under the Cooperative Societies Act. The bylaws need to be prepared, they have to be implemented, The registration process has to be completed. The roles of members have to be enlisted, entailed, and therefore and thereafter a cooperative society, they can work themselves, they can work in the form of a cooperative society, they can work under a cooperative society. Next is unit 3, which um, gives the details about what are the approaches for ideas generations. The major approaches for ideas generations are natural resources or manpower resources or infrastructure, population, export, import, some anticipated industries, etc., etc. And what are the ways in which final selection of business opportunities are done. So this is what we will be covering here. So what are the major approaches for ideas generation? Your ability to generate ideas is dependent upon your interest in sensing opportunities over a period of time. It is not a matter of, one slot shot. You have to sense the opportunities over a period of time. You have to sense the urgency. You have to motivate yourself to establish an enterprise of your own. Your ability to harness sources of knowledge and information will play an important role. Your vision and creativity will again play an important role in your approach to idea generation. So, following are the approaches of ideas generation. I have a query here from Rosemary. What is harnessing of knowledge? Um, just a second. See, harnessing of knowledge, harnessing sources of knowledge means exploiting your sources of knowledge, exploiting or enriching your sources of knowledge. How are you going to attain knowledges and information? How are you going to utilize it? How are you going to update the knowledge and information that you uh, have acquired already? That is harnessing. Harnessing is basically enriching. Harnessing is basically monitoring. Okay, ensuring that you have constant control over knowledge and information. You have you're constantly gaining knowledge and information. You are constantly monitoring the knowledge and information that you've acquired. You are monitoring and you're updating, you're following up, you're utilizing, you're implementing. That is harnessing. Basically, um, if I have to put it in one word, I can say utilizing. How are you going to utilize the source of knowledge and information that you already possess? Is that okay, Rosemary? Okay. So, what are the approaches to generation of ideas? Um, the approaches can be resources, as in every country is endowed with a lot of natural resources. So those natural resources can be exploited for the benefit of its population. For instance, there are grains, there are some crops, there is horticulture, plantation, agro waste, minerals, there are marine resources, there is animal wealth. All of this could be utilized for generating of business ideas, for generation of ideas. You can utilize or think of any such natural resource that you could contribute, that you could utilize and contribute as a product or service to the people. Manpower resources. Now, what are manpower resources? Basically, the skilled manpower that is available in a country that could uh, be used as a competitive advantage. For instance, India has a lot of IT professionals. For instance, China has a lot of labor potential. So, with your manpower, utilizing your manpower, um you could think of a product or service, or think of an idea rather, with which you could contribute to the population by coming up with a product or service. Infrastructure. Ample and cost effective supply of electric power might lead to project ideas where energy costs from a significant part could be of the total manufacturing cost could be reduced. So, there's a lot of infrastructural opportunities or avenues available with the help of which ideas could be generated. For instance, the national or transnational highways which are linking the provinces or the countries with others, you could do something over there. Some unmet needs of the population in provinces linked by the highway could be done there. You may list manufacturing activities that can meet such needs wherein transport cost is significant. So, how to reduce the transport cost? Something to be done in electric power, like I just said, electric power, wherein you could use some ferroalloys or something like that. You may think of coming up with port facilities, seaport or airport facilities. So, a lot of scope lies even in infrastructural. Population. Um, See, you an entrepreneur may gather information on demography and its related aspects like gender, like age, like size of the population, like income of the population or their occupancy, and on the basis of that, a list of project ideas could be made. For instance, if the population is increasing, certain basic necessities of life like medicine, housing, education, the demand for that is going to rise. So you may think of venturing into that sector. Where the per capita income is showing an increasing trend, that means that durables and non-durables products are in demand, and people are disposing more of their income. So you can think of that. Where the literacy rate is increasing, you can think of moving into the education sector, come up with educational institutions like Baiju, Sharda University, LPU. A lot of institutions has opened in the last 1.5 decades, right? Because the literacy rate has been rising. So when there is lot of migration happening from urban to rural areas, you can think of making some manufactured goods which could satisfy the necessities of urban life. So on and so forth, depending upon, after gathering a lot of information about the shift of population, you can think of certain products like that. Import substitution, when certain goods those were imported previously by the country is now supposed to be manufactured within the boundaries of the nation. For instance, if I tell you in 2014, I think, no, sorry, I think in 2016 we launched Make in India project, right? So when Make in India project was launched, lot of import substitution to a great extent possible was done. So under such circumstances, you could figure out which are the intermediates or semi-finished goods or even the finished goods. Those were imported in significant quantities from other nation that you could think of substituting now. So a lot of business ideas generation could be done from those areas. Export oriented industries. If the nation is calling out to export oriented industries wherein there's a lot of facilities or assistance or subsidies being provided to them, then you can think of identifying such sectors and um figuring out what are the ways in which you could contribute. You could set up an export oriented unit, EOU it is called, in short, export oriented unit, in what sector, and you can export what good. to which country. So opportunities based on existing industries. What are the existing industries or anticipated industries, and how well are they doing? If they are doing well, can you start a similar project? Is there a scope for is there a gap? Is there a window for entering into that sector? Um, is it not very competitive? You know, for instance, for more than a decade, no, for a decade rather, e-commerce has been flourishing a lot, right? It has become like a bubble. Once it bursts, everyone else is going to, every such sector is going to burst. So with a lot of rise in the e-commerce sector, you you must have seen that there are a lot of new entrants also who've entered the market. Now there is Misho, which has just recently entered during COVID period. There is Urbanic, there is AGO, there is what and what not. And also a fact that these are still registered big players in the market. There are several small players existing in the market in the e-commerce sector. There is Chandi Studio, there is I don't know, there's several of them. So that has been picked up from the opportunities that was available in the existing industry. Major institutional purchases that have been taking place um, in the market. For instance, I'll give you a very apt example over here. The the case of sanitizers or masks during COVID, right? During COVID period, there was major institutional purchase happening. Government or hospital sector, for that matter of reason, being the largest buyer of such products. Um, Everyone ventured out into it. Ford started making masks. Ford started making ventilators. So what happened? Depending upon the institutional purchase or institutional demand of a particular product, you can figure out which sector to enter into. Shortage of industrial or consumer good. If you see that there is a short supply of a certain manufactured good, you can identify the reasons for such shortages and can try to fill in the gap on your own. Okay. Again, the example that can fit in is the local players, the local manufacturers who entered into manufacturing masks or manufacturing sanitizers during the COVID period. There was shortage of the good, and that gap was to be filled. There was shortage in supply, and that gap was filled by them. All types of wastes you can think of, making something out of the wastes. Wastes that the industrial units are emitting, wastes that certain factories are emitting, and you can think of buying their waste. You can think of um consider domestic wastes or agro wastes. For instance, if I give you an example, there is this brand called Daily Dump. There's this brand called Daily Dump, which does what? They basically sell um, portable boxes within which you could collect your domestic wastes and convert it into fertilizers. So domestic waste and agro wastes also have ample amount of um, scope for giving you some ideas. Service sector opportunities. There's a lot of scope in the service sector opportunities, be it transport, be it courier, be it cleaning, be it um, anything, gardening, security. Lot of sectors which can wherein you can enter and think of business of your own. So we already discussed this: natural resources, manpower resources, infrastructure, population, service sector. Then, innovative efforts. Uh, while a lot of options are available for the entrepreneurs to start up with, but it is always recommended that an innovative approach should be picked up while interpreting the information to arrive at a particular project idea. You might get lot of ideas from service sectors, opportunity based, shortage of industrial and commercial goods, institutional purchases, etc. But pick up those ones which are innovative in nature, which could bring some innovation to the plate, which could bring some innovation to the market. Okay, come up with products which actually solve some problems and not just takes advantage of a situation that the economy is currently facing. Okay, for instance, if there is frequent breakdown of electric some electrical equipments due to um unstable power supply, this could be taken up as a problem. And how are you going to bring an innovative idea so that the same issue of breakdown of power supply could be resolved? While choosing a business idea, an entrepreneur must try to exploit some or other new technology, uh, so that there is technological upgradation, so that more could be achieved at less. Then it is important that you come up with products that appeal to the human psyche. For instance, there is this mini fire extinguisher, for instance, or there is this micromax air purifier, which is meant for homes. So, such products which appeal, which are affordable, which are very much required, looking at the looking at the environmental condition today, or looking at the budgets that people could afford for their home. Okay, technical extension of an established concept. If there is an established concept, for instance, in the last course that I was teaching you, MER 02, I had come up with innovative products. Under innovative products slide first, I had discussed with you how mosquito repellents have grown over a year, have changed over the years, have extended themselves over the years. At first it was in the form of a coil, s- then it came up in the form of a ticket, then it came up in the form of a liquid, then it came up in the form of some gel to be applied on your body, odomos, and then finally the mosquito repellent rackets, right? So come up with technical extension of an established concept. If there's a solution, then how do you improve it? Okay, bring some change in the lifestyles of people, right? For instance, processed foods could be replaced by fresh foods and vegetables. You see, there are a lot of vendors on Swiggy and Zomato these days which provide fresh fruits to people, exotic fruits to people. Sensing opportunities based on known ideas and project. So, if there is a known idea or if there is a known product, you have to sense what opportunities lies within it. What are the ways in which you could improve that? What are the ways in which um, two products could be combined to serve one comprehensive product to the customers. Okay, so certain such products have to be thought of under innovative efforts. Next, final selection of business opportunities. So there are few guidelines to be kept in mind while finally selecting a business opportunity for by the entrepreneurs. First is imperfect knowledge. Knowledge, as in, uh, if your homework is not complete, if your homework is imperfect, then avoid that opportunity. For instance, if you know that there is an idea which has not been well researched by me, that has not been given due diligence by me, that is too expensive, that is too risky uh, to dwell into, leave it. Do not enter into it. It is important that you do preliminary evaluation of business ideas. There should be comprehensive comparison of the opportunities that lies underneath. For each opportunity, the entrepreneur should ask and answer a series of questions so as to evaluate the business idea properly. There may be certain errors in selection. That's very common. But businesses uh, may, uh, come across, or business enterprises are very common, or how do I put it, there are some common errors, there are rather some common errors which business entrepreneurs get indulged into. So those common errors are listed here. First is me too syndrome. So there are certain entrepreneurs, because there are certain entrepreneurs who think that given an opportunity, I will do it well. They do not undertake the lack of homework that they've you know done on that idea. They rather measure their prosperity in terms of the success that others have achieved using that idea. Okay, so there is no room for too many entrepreneurs in a product line. So you shouldn't think that, if the other person could do it, I can also do it. You need to do your homework better. At certain places, you might suffer competitive disadvantages. So, Me Too syndrome is one of those errors. Other is fallacy of numbers. Uh, Sometimes entrepreneurs make their income and profitability estimates based on too many assumptions. Based on too many assumptions. Those assumptions do not are not found to be true in a dynamic environment. Okay, so entrepreneurs need not be over enthusiastic while evaluating the profitability or income estimates of a business idea. So there can be a fallacy of numbers. Those numbers that they've come across with, or they've come out with, may not hold true, and may not uh, result in achieving success that they are estimated themselves to achieve. Then story of an elephant syndrome. What is this? There, there are other entrepreneurs who notice merely a part of the total project reality. Okay, they merely project up. They merely consider or notice a part of the total project reality. They do not look at the whole picture. They do not look at the full prospects of a business idea. They might think that uh, or they might consider only the positive features of an opportunity, and they might overlook the negative ones. So this unfounded optimism doesn't really work all the time. So this is another common error that entrepreneurs do while selecting a business opportunity. Next error is square peg in a round hole. So certain times the entrepreneurs fail to relate the key determinants of success of a project to their own capabilities. A project or a business opportunity requires certain things, and the entrepreneurs might not have those. Okay, an entrepreneur might not have those. So it is important that entrepreneurs compare the key determinants required by the project to their own capabilities. What is it that the project requires, and what is it that you have? I, for instance, if I have to tell you, put it like this, I may hold a number of degrees. I'm a qualified chartered accountant. I am pursuing PhD. I've done MBA. I've done LLB. Now I have, a lot of degrees, and I think that, the best that I can be is that of a teacher. I start my own institute like Byju's and an academy, and I fail miserably because I may have a lot of knowledge, but I may not be able to translate it better, to put it better, to make it understand to the students. So knowing something and making the other person understand the same thing is are two different concepts. Okay. So there may be a lot of people who own a lot of degrees and own a lot of qualification, are highly qualified, but they may not be very good teachers. Right. So similarly, here square peg in a round hole means that uh, it certainly requires certain key determinants to take a business opportunity to another level, and those determinants might not be available with the entrepreneur. So they should assess both, they should compare both. Failure to grasp key elements of success. um, Sometimes the entrepreneurs discover it very late that they do not actually own the qualities or the determinants which are required to succeed a project. For instance, they might think that what is required is to be a good chef, whereas actually what is required is to have a good place, a good hotel, a good ambience, good marketing skills. So they may fail in grasping the key elements of success. Lack of ownership. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who are not involved in the enterprises which they pursue. For instance, especially in the cases of partnership or family owned businesses, they're not pretty much involved in the businesses, and therefore uh, they might not be able to take ahead a particular business opportunity that they think that they can succeed in. Catch the first bus. Sometimes entrepreneurs think that whatever is going to come to me at first, I'm going to grab that opportunity and start up my enterprise with. Whichever business idea comes to my way, I will start up with. That's not how it works. You need to have the key elements. You need to have the spirit to run a particular business. You must be motivated enough to work on a business opportunity. You need to wait sometimes rather than grabbing a wrong opportunity. There could be inaccurate information with the business entrepreneurs, and yet they might think of moving ahead with the opportunities, and will finally lead to what? Failure. Unwillingness to step back. Sometimes stepping back is also very important. If you've decided on a particular business idea, which might be an excellent one, and on that basis, if you've prepared a report, and let's assume that your loan also gets approved, you even give up your job for that. You've announced your venture to the general public, and the market crashes. Under such circumstances, if the recovery if the chances of recovery doesn't look prospective or slim, you need to step back. There are circumstances when stepping back is important. When stepping back from a business opportunity is also important. If it hasn't worked due to certain circumstances, it is not important that it will work even in the future. So, with the help of expert advice, with the help of some legal consultancies, you need to choose to step back. So, learning to step back is also important at times in entrepreneurship. So, next unit is understanding business opportunities. Here, um, at first, we are going to do what are the processes involved in business opportunity study. The processes involved in studying business opportunity. So, there is a series of steps. There are some 7 steps which are involved in understanding opportunity identification and screening. This is called as OIS model. This is called as OIS model, which is opportunity identification and screening model. So there's a series of 7 steps we are going to do one by one. At first, you need to prepare your personal profile. Personal profile, as in you are the one who has to make an enterprise or idea work. So you need to develop a certain attitude towards the business. You might have some preferences for the businesses, and therefore you need to put it in words. You need to put statement personal profile, wherein you have to state your name, your education, your work experience, what are the other academic practical interest, personality, what are the objectives behind establishing such an enterprise. Are you prepared for making investment? How much risk are you ready to take? What is your risk taking attitude? And any other personal considerations, such as I want to do it on my own, I am open for partnership, I'm not open for partnership, I want to do it in a metropolitan city, I want to do it in my hometown. If there's any personal consideration that you have, if there's any personal consideration that you have, that's the first stage. That's the first stage. With preparation of such personal profile, you will be able to figure out better what business opportunities should you be choosing, what business opportunities are suitable for you. Next stage is development of opportunity selection framework. Development of opportunity selection framework, or OS framework. Being open to any opportunity does not mean taking any action at all. Okay, I'm open to any opportunity doesn't mean that you will not take any action. Rather, you should develop your own list of criterias for OIS, so that you get clarified about your expectations, and you can set to rest your anxieties. This list is very essential to ensure sufficient focus for entrepreneurs. Okay, this list will help you in answering certain questions like what could be, how much investment are you willing to make, what is the degree of technological sophistication that you desire, what how large or complicated is the managerial or organizational task, what is your education skills and experience for that, does it match the requirements or the demands. Then you may come across entrepreneurs who are looking for monopoly business opportunities, wherein they are not ready to face competition. Then what are the sectoral preference, as in, do you want to do it in you know chemical or plastic industry, or you want to do it in some services sector, or you want to do it in certain manufacturing sector. If it is to be manufacturing, then which sector under manufacturing? Is it going to be clothing? Is it going to be uh, FMCG? What is it going to be? The sectoral preferences. Government intervention or dependence. Would you want a definite attitude towards um, government intervention or dependence? As in, would you want the government to intervene while you are fixing the prices for yourself? Because there are certain sectors wherein government has a lot of interference. For instance, under the Essential Commodities Act that we had discussed in MER 02, the government is going to interfere if you are going to make any drugs or pharmaceutical industry. Okay, so depending upon the amount of government intervention or dependence that you're prepared for, your implementation time, what profitability are you looking for, how much of risk are you ready to take, which location are you preferring, so on and so forth. Next next step is generation or identification of ideas. So after working out on your personal profile, what is required is uh, to hit upon ideas, to figure out the range and depth of ideas that you're picking up. There are no sure ways to pick up a particular business opportunity which is going to take you to success. But then again, all that you can do is stretch your mind, you can get started and identify a journey and cover the ground rapidly, so that the sources of information or assistance that you need to familiarize yourself with is available on time. Next step is to snap investigation of ideas. Snap investigation of ideas means, um see, just generating a business idea is never complete enough, is never good enough, is never going to get you success. You need to examine how viable it is, how feasible it is. So you need to figure out and talk about the entrepreneurs who are engaged in identical business. You need to talk about the potential customers that you are looking forward to. How much knowledgeable officials in agencies are ready or available to assist this industry? Are consultants out there? If yes, go meet them, figure out, get help. And the supplies, machinery suppliers or the raw material suppliers, are they available or not? Evaluation in terms of opportunity selection framework and shortlisting of ideas. So here you need to evaluate on the basis of snap investigation of ideas, the previous step. Now you need to evaluate on the basis of the pros and cons of each available idea as to whether to go ahead with, let's say if you wish to go ahead with a garment for exports. So you need to figure out what is the capital required, what is the investment required, what, how much large is the market, how big is the market, how many competitors are there, how much are they making. So you can figure out the window, the gap. The market is this large and the competitors are only serving this much customers. So there exists a scope for you to enter. So similarly, for every sector that you can think of entering, you need to figure out the pros and cons and then evaluate. Pre-feasibility studies. Pre-feasibility study means before you can actually launch the idea, you need to figure out whether it is profitable or not. How are you going to figure that out? You need to conduct a feasibility test. So, uh, uh, all those shortlisted project ideas could be put into test and figured out how much profit can it generate, how much investment is required, what would be the expected expenses, and how much is the scope of earning profit under such shortlisted ideas. And finally, opportunity selection. There's the last step, wherein on the basis of feasibility study, on the basis of how much profitable can a particular idea be, an opportunity be, you select an opportunity for yourself. So you see what are the products that the business opportunity or idea will result in, what are the applications of that product, what is the market potential, as in how large is the market, what is the project capacity, the manufacturing process, what are the plants and machinery required, raw material and consumables required, infrastructure facilities needed, the manpower, the skills needed, utilities, cost, and finally profitability estimates. So this is how you finally select an opportunity. Next is unit 5th, resource mapping, that we are going to cover in the next class, which will be tomorrow. So this is all for today. In case you have any queries, kindly let me know.
In fact,
So
yeah, in fact, the student who was there, I think he has left. So,
yes, I just saw, sir, that there is no student. If
yeah,
you
right.
could stop the recording, sir.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I will do that.